Hi, this is Robin McNamara, and you are listening to Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio 97.7 FM. You got to be loving Australia. I know I do.
Just to begin with, you proudly call yourself an old hippie. Do you feel more like a hippie now that there are less of them around than you did back in the day when they were everywhere?
No, not really. I've just sort of felt this way all my life. You know, sort of. That's what I am. I mean, that whole hippie movement was for real, and that's sort of just the way I've been feeling. I don't feel more or less one way different than the other than when I was younger as I do now.
Just going right back to the beginnings of music for you, tell us about your early band, Robin and the Hoods.
Well, actually, it goes back. What influenced me even long before that was back in I'd say the middle 50s, right around the time of Presley. You know, I heard this song on the radio that sort of turned my life around. It was called Beep Bop-A-Lula by Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps. And that's about the same time Presley came out, and so I used to go to watch the Presley. I loved Elvis Presley, just like John Lennon did and all the Beatles did. You know, and I used to go to watch his movies and come home and just want to be like him. And then, you know, one thing, as I got older, I was always interested in music. I picked up the guitar and you know, I just started messing with it, and I learned how to play, and I formed a little band, and then when in high school, I formed a rock band called Robin and the Hoods, and that's how that all got started.
It must have been a pretty daunting experience for you, leaving home and heading off to New York to pursue your musical ambitions. Did you go there with a plan?
No. That's one of the beauties of this business. There's no logic to it. That's what makes it so fascinating. What I was going to do after high school, actually, you know, I was pretty good in math and science, and I have a fascination with meteorology, the study of weather forecasting. And I was going to go to college and study meteorology, but, you know, after being in two or three bands in high school, I realized that my bigger passion was music. And so I went down from Boston area down to New York City, and instead of going to college, which the family wasn't real thrilled about, and I went down there with my first wife and an infant son, and lived with her relatives for a while. And I actually worked in a car wash in New Jersey, and used to go in every day. Well, not every day, but every so often into New York City. I was only about 20 miles from the city, living in Jersey, and I'd audition myself, and fortunately things turned out.
Yeah, of course, you're a major part of the New York cast of Hair. Would you consider that your first big break in the music business?
Well, actually, I got my recording contract before Hair. One of the things I auditioned for was this manager looking for a singer for a rock and roll band in New York, and anyway, I wound up signing with him. His name was Mark Allen. He had Tommy James and the Shondells and a bunch of other people, and he was looking to place me in a band that he had. But in the same time, I'll never forget this. I walked in his office one day, and his secretary said to me, "Why don't you go down and audition?" Before this happened, he introduced me to Jeff Barry also, who had, you know, Neil Diamond and the Monkees and Andy Kim, and Jeff and Phil Spector and Ellie Greenwich wrote all the songs for the Shangri-Las, the Crystals, the Ronettes, and anyway, he introduced me to him, and Jeff liked some of the songs I was writing, so he signed me to a contract. But still, I wasn't getting any work. I was doing a lot of recording, and so I walked into Mark Allen's office one day, my manager, and his secretary said to me, "Robin, why don't you go down and audition for Hair?" You know, and being just, I didn't really know. I said, "What's Hair?" And she explained it to me, and I went down and I auditioned, and you know, it was a 3-month process. I went down to audition. They called me back, and all this time I'm still working in the car wash. And I auditioned again. About 2 weeks later, they called me back, and finally, it took about 3 months, and I finally wound up auditioning for the producer, Michael Butler, the writers, and everybody else. And after that audition, they hired me. And yeah, I'll tell you, hair is my, so far in my life, sort of, I guess, my biggest accomplishment. It's because it was such a I love working in theater. It was such a magical time. And the whole play was for real. I mean, it wasn't, everybody in that play believed in the message.
I know the Australian production of Hair at the time caused a lot of controversy, and we were quite a conservative nation at that time. Was it just as controversial over there?
In some cities, I mean, not so much in New York. It wasn't really all that controversial. I mean, they had the nude scene and everything, but I mean, if you've seen the play, the nude scene was, it was very beautiful. Actually, it was when the role I played, I wound up playing eventually was Claude, and when Claude sings "Where Do I Go" at the end of the second act, it's a very poignant time in the show. And that's when we did the nude scene at the end of that. And all the nude scene really meant was, take a good look, we are all one.
Yeah.
And but there was some cities like Boston, my hometown, and other cities where, they tried to ban it for a while. But all that free press and controversy actually helped the show.
During the time that you were with the production, were you still thinking about your musical career outside of Hair? Was that high on your agenda still?
Oh, yes, of course, because I was always recording at the same time I was in the show. And as a matter of fact, I had to leave the show for 6 months for a while to go on tour when Little Lovin On Me became a hit. And then I went back to the show. I'm always, even to this day, I'm still recording and writing.
Yeah.
It's a passion with me.
You worked as a consultant on a recent revival of Hair too, I believe. How did that go?
It went well. I mean, we sold out for 3 weeks in Tampa Bay. And as a matter of fact, a funny story, Michael Butler the original producer here, came into town and stayed with my wife and I. We were living in St. Petersburg, Florida, in Tampa Bay, and he came. We invited him, and he came and stayed with us, and we did press for the show, and we did radio and TV interviews, and one of the radio interviews I did in St. Petersburg, Florida, was they asked me to sing something from Hair. So as opposed to doing something like Aquarius or some of the well-known numbers, I decided to sing Sodomy. And I tell you what, and I explained, because when I joined the show, I actually started out in the chorus, but they made me the understudy to Keith Carradine, who was playing the role of Wolf. And Wolf was the character in the show that sang the song Sodomy. And then when Keith moved up to do Claude, I moved up to do the role of Wolf. And actually, when Keith left, that's when I moved up to Claude. But when they asked me on the radio show to sing a song from Hair, I explained to them. I started explaining the role of Wolf. And then I said, and this is the song that Wolf sang in the show. And I started singing Sodomy, and I'll never forget when I was about halfway through it, I'm thinking to myself, well, they haven't stopped me yet, I might as well keep going. So I did, and when I was done with it, I could see the engineer and everybody in the booth just falling on the floor in laughter. And then the phone calls started coming in. Most of them pro. There were some con, but most of them pro. But like I say, Hair was pretty controversial, and I think doing that performance of Sodomy on the radio helped sell a few tickets.
I'm sure it did. If you had one standout memory of your time with Hair to take with you to the grave, what would it be?
I don't know. There were a lot, but I'll never forget one time. Kind of a funny thing that happened was, when I first started, like I said, I was in the chorus, and I did part of the role of Claude doesn't have to do the nude scene, but when I was in the chorus, I did the nude scene, and when you do extracurricular kind of things in the show, like sing extra lines, or if you do the nude scene or whatever, they always pay you a little more. That's not really why we did it. We did it because we loved it. But so one night, for some reason, what they do is they drop a cloth on us in this little Velcro of openings where we all just pop up through, and you have to sort of disrobe pretty fast. And to get it right, you know. And one night, for some reason, I couldn't get my damn shirt off, and so and it was time to come up through the little opening. So I come up through the opening, but I had my shirt on, but the rest of me was nude, and so as a joke, the stage manager, I mean the hair company only paid me for half the nude scene for that performance as a joke.
Talk about your recording career. Were you confident that you had a hit single on your hands when you recorded Lay Little Lovin On Me?
Not at all. I mean, you know, keep in mind I was only a young kid, and when I met Jeff Barry, you know, I didn't really know who he was until I had auditioned for him, and then I found out who he was and what an international producer he was, and I was just excited about being able to go and record my music that I wrote either by myself or with him, and you know, and you hope when you're recording the stuff. And I remember saying to Jeff, I said, Jeff, I want to change my name because no one's going to buy a song with somebody by the name of Robin McNamara. And he said, watch. And so anyway, he to make a long story short, you know, I didn't know, but I always hoped. And it happened, and the rest is history.
I believe Jeff wasn't totally happy about the song's title at the time, though.
Not in the very beginning. I mean, he was, you know, Jeff. You know, Jeff's a beautiful guy, and he's still my mentor to this day. I'm still in contact with him, and I learned so much from him. I mean, my college was working with him in the studio, but I mean, he was pretty used to doing stuff more. What I would call lemonade type music, and I don't mean that derogatory. I mean, he had a lot of hits with that kind of material. But when I signed with him, I think he sort of broke the mold with me, because when I went in with Lay Little Lovin On Me as the title, he said, well, I don't know if we can get away with that. And then I expressed to him at that time, I said, well, Lay Lady Lay by Bob Dylan was in the top 10. He said, well, yeah, but that's Bob Dylan. and then I said, okay. And anyway, for about a week, we actually changed the title to Take a Little Time to Know Me. And then and we all decided, well, no, that's not working. And so then we went back to the original title, Lay Little Lovin On Me. And so then he said, I'll never forget this. He said, well, if we're going to go in that direction, he started thinking, and then he started banging out a beat on the desk, and he said, can't you see that I am hung on your love? Can't you see? And so that's how that first line was written.
Now, you were still in here.
It was more rated X than you thought.
Yeah, that's right. You were still in here when the song became a hit. Did you become torn at any stage between your commitment to the show and trying to capitalize on the success of the record?
Not at all, because like I said, they allowed me to go on tour. I take a leave of absence from the show, and while I'm on tour, keep in mind I'm promoting the show. Not that they really needed my promotion, because it was a tremendous success actually all around the world. I mean, Hair is the only show to this day that's ever had 33 running companies around the world at the same time.
Yeah.
But no, they allowed me to take a leave of absence and go tour, and then come back and join the show again.
Now,
it was fun.
The album you released at that time was a real melting pot of musical styles. Was that a deliberate desire of yours to have that diversity on record, or a simple matter of still finding your feet musically?
My album?
Yeah.
Have you heard that album?
The first one, yeah.
Oh, you have? Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because, like I say, I mean, that was a departure for Jeff Barry, because you're right. There is a lot of variety of songs on that album. And yeah, that was on purpose. I mean, it was. I didn't want to go the typical bubblegum lemonade route. I tried to diversify a lot of different sounds on that album. And Jeff, like I say, he just sort of let us do what we wanted to do.
You re-recorded the song in recent times too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did actually. I did it once by myself, and actually once with a girl singer here from Tampa Bay area named Sheila Christian Hughes, beautiful singer-songwriter, and I did a duet with her on it.
So when you read about yourself or hear about yourself and you hear the term one-hit wonder being used to describe you, are you comfortable with that, or does that bother you at times?
No, not really at all, because, I mean, a lot of people ask me that question, and it doesn't really, to be totally honest. If it did, I'd tell you. But the thing about it is, I was blessed to have that time in my life, and I always believe I don't give up. In other words, I'm recording another song now with Ivan Krall. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's written for David Bowie and Patti Smith and a lot of the glam rockers back in the day, Iggy Pop. And we just wrote a song called Tampa Bay that looks like we're getting some good reviews on. So my point is, I'll never stop writing and singing, even as old as I am. If it's a passion, you don't give up. And I have to feel like I can accomplish what I've already accomplished. If it never happens, it doesn't happen. And I'll always feel like I was blessed to have those days and those times in my life. So no, that statement doesn't really bother me, not at all.
I believe you've had your own publishing company over the years.
Oh, yeah. Well, every writer owns their own publishing until they deal it away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is. Matter of fact, back in the day, I mean, record labels would literally take your publishing. But I was so young and naive, like a lot of other artists back then, you didn't even realize what was going on.
And recording studio as well. You've got a interest in a recording studio?
Yes, I have my own home studio now. And it's a lot, obviously the technology that's grown over the years, it's just so much more simpler to get a quality sound recording with much less equipment, smaller equipment, I should say, than back in the day when everything was analog.
Yeah, it's quite liberating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do. I mean, like I was telling you, writing this new song that I was telling you about, Tampa Bay, I'm emailing WAV files back and forth. And recording my stuff here. He's recording his stuff where he is, and it's just amazing what you can do.
I saw mention on your website of a production called Stuck in the 60s. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, that was a play that I've been working on for many years, and I should have sent you the. I never sent you the song, huh?
No.
Well, after this interview, what I'll do is I'll send you a couple of the songs from the play.
Oh, fantastic.
And yeah, and that way you'll have a little more insight into what it's about. But it was basically just, hippie, stuck in the 60s, and I'm being very general about it. But when you hear the music, it sort of tells explains the situation a little better.
Now, also on your website, I was reading about your brother. It's an inspiring story there. For our listeners, can you give us a bit of a rundown there?
Yeah, I mean, Ray, my brother Ray, a matter of fact, I just came back from Boston about 2 or 3 weeks ago where we did a benefit performance up there in honor of him. Now, my brother Ray, in 1993, he was a fireman on the Newton, Massachusetts Fire Department, and him and a bunch of other firemen at the station got a call to go to a fire at this chemical plant. And when they got there, what no one told them or no one realized was once they turned the hose on the chemicals that were in the plant, when the water hit it, that caused an explosion. And the explosion blew up, just blew the building up, and 13 firefighters were really injured. No one killed, but all of them injured. But Ray was injured the most severe. That's just the way he is. He just, he attacks everything he does. He was the first one in the building with the hose. And anyway, and they took him to the hospital, and we went to see him, and it was an amazing thing. He was like wrapped, enclosed in a bubble kind of thing for germs, wrapped up like a mummy from head to toe. And to make a long story short, he was in a coma for a year, and he wound up, he was blind. He was burnt over almost 90% of his body. His face was really burnt bad. He went blind. And it sounds like, and it's a tragic story, and it is, but now here it is almost 20 years later, and we did this benefit up in Boston, and if you met Ray today, he'll make you laugh. And another thing that happened to him, after about 2 years after the accident, they did an experimental operation on him. I forget what the name of it is, up in Boston, where they actually, on one of his eyes, because he was blind, he could actually see again for about 6 months out of that one eye. But then again, after about 6 months, it faded to black again. So now he went blind again. Now, if you think about that, if that was me, or most people, I would think, if you didn't want to die, you'd probably just want to be shot up with heroin for the rest of your life, or morphine or whatever. but not Ray. I mean, and so like I say, now here it is, almost 20 years later, and if you ever sat and talked with him, he's sharp as a tack, so intelligent. He loves the Boston Red Sox, but he'll sit down and make you laugh. He seems to have found that inner peace we all seek, even under the conditions that he goes through from day to day. Yeah. It's just amazing. Matter of fact, this benefit show we did, he got up and sang with us. We had about 30 musicians from the Boston area. Just a hardcore, big-time rock and roll show.
Oh, fantastic. That's terrific.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What an amazing story.
It is amazing. He's a lesson in faith, hope, and courage.
Now, Robin, if you could go back in a time machine and have a talk to young Robin McNamara, just about to go to New York and pursue music as a career, what advice would you make sure you gave him?
Well, let me see. I don't know. I mean, because when you're that young, you sort of feel bulletproof and invincible. So, you just freelance. But I think if I understand your question correctly, if I knew then what I know now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest with you, if I would do anything differently, because I could say I would protect my music more and not get so ripped off like everybody else did. But that's just the way it was back then, and if you didn't allow it to happen, you wouldn't succeed. I don't know, to be honest. That's a tough question. I like that question, but I don't know. I don't think I have a good answer for you for that question.
Well, you don't sound to me like the kind of guy that harbours regrets, so maybe that's why you're having trouble finding an answer.
No, I really don't. I don't really regret anything the way it was done and the way I did it. To be honest with you.
Fair enough too.
And I can think back to different turns and moves I might have made differently, but it's not to the point where I regret what I did.
Yeah. And just to finish up, looking ahead, upcoming plans. What's in the foreseeable future for you?
Well, I still do periodic shows every now and then. People call and still want to hear the song and hear some of the stuff from here. But I'm out of anything that I've accomplished in this business, whether it be actor, singer, dancer, whatever, I consider myself a songwriter more than anything. And matter of fact, like I say, after this interview, I'll email you some of my material that I probably should have sent to you ahead of this interview. But that's my passion, my songwriting and my recording, and I'm always pursuing and trying to solicit to get something else happening.
Fantastic. Hey, Robin, thanks so much for your time. It's been terrific catching up with you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much for your call and all your support.
No, pleasure indeed. And maybe one day, you never know, we'll get you down here to Australia. We'd love to see you.
Oh, that'd be fun, brother. That'd be a lot of fun.
Okay, all the best.
Thank you, John. Take care. Wonderful talking with you.
You too. Bye-bye.